So I have a demo today, basically just showing off event dispatching in Backbone. It's nothing specific to Backbone, but more just showing why using events in JavaScript is really the way it goes sometimes.
Can you guys hear me okay back there?
Not very well.
Alright, I'll just step back until I
Put you on the spot.
Alright, so my name's Lin Chu, and I'm on GitHub, Lin Rock, here. Doesn't really matter. Okay, anyways, so events in JavaScript, basically they're just things that trigger actions. Anyone that cares about that action can listen to it and do something. And that falls under the pub sub pattern, publish subscribe. And anyone that's used JavaScript with jQuery, for example, probably used to DOM events, click handlers, submit handlers. That's basically just pub sub that everyone that's used JavaScript is more or less familiar with it. But one issue is that there's a tendency to not use events for communicating between a lot of different modules, and then that kind of leads to this issue with coupling, tight coupling, loose coupling. So what tight coupling means is if you have a lot of explicit references to different objects between each other, then this gets kind of hard to manage as your app gets bigger. But then with loose coupling, which is what PubSub is kind of meant to do, it's just you trigger events, and then anyone that cares about that event listens to it and responds accordingly. And then in Backbone.js, events are used in every single module, every single piece of the app, of the library. For example, models, anytime an attribute changes, an event is fired. Anytime the collection changes, if you add a model to it, you remove one, you sort it, events are fired, use and declare events with the events hash. And then with the routers, every time a route is matched, events are fired. So there's no way to escape from using events, but it's also easy to tend to not use it. So here's an example of using the Backbone events module. So here is just global, well not necessarily global, but a dispatcher object that listens for events, and then, or listens or triggers events, and anyone that subscribes to it can listen for events specifically and decide what to do with it. So one use case for this is if you have a lot of different views, then you might just want to listen to a particular event and handle them accordingly. Alright, so let's get to the more fun part. Okay, so there's a demo, if you guys care. It's on JS Fiddle, MCXXX. People with laptops might want to check it out. And basically, within the demo, there's 4 different entities, 4 different Backbone views. There's a counter, an overlay, a world, and a bunch of circles floating around, but we'll get to that in a second. And the way that this is like what this is basically just an animation and all driven by events. Okay. Let's get out of this. Alright, so this is that. Oh, that's really hard to see.
I wonder if we should drop a
Okay.
little light.
That's better.
Okay.
Alright, so basically what happens here is you have a lot of circles bounced around. These are all just divs. They're all views. And then if you move around, you can just kick them around. And then if you click on anything, everything is inverted. All the circles just kind of, the velocity gets inverted, the background gets inverted, the text gets inverted. But all I'm doing here is just using one event. I'm using the click handler that fires an event that causes everyone else to change. So the 3 different pieces, the circles, the background, and the counter, they're all just listening for events. And then as soon as I do one thing, this one line of code causes everything to just happen. And this counter up here is just the number of circles that are spawned. So you see them fading in and out, and then as soon as something fades out, it gets destroyed, and then another one's created, and that counter is just responding to the event of circles being created. So that is that. So why do we want to use an evented approach? So back to tight coupling and loose coupling. If we were to use tight coupling and just use references to every single view on the page, then if I wanted to invert the text, invert the background, everything, I'd have to call the methods explicitly, just like the above. And then if you wanted to add a lot more stuff to that, then it kind of gets bigger and bigger, and then eventually it might become hard to manage. But then with loose coupling, all I'm doing is just triggering an event on a dispatcher, and then all the other views are just listening for that particular event and then responding accordingly. So if you have a lot of different things going on with a lot of different events, then it makes more sense to kind of use this pattern, PubSub, instead of referencing everything. Alright, so that's that. basically we just introduced the pub sub pattern with an example with Backbone, and then use cases, that was just an animation, but then more practically you can do it with any forms, and then you can give dozens of views. Eventually things pile up and it makes more sense to have some structure to the way events are triggered. And that kind of leads to the next topic, which is that David is talking about his library. David? Yeah. So he's talking about Backbone Courier's library, which is meant to handle lots of events on a higher scale.
You got a few minutes left. You want to get a question? No?
Explain the code.
Yeah. Pop open that code. That's the.
Okay.
Question here?
Yeah. You know a simple way to watch the events happening in your Backbone application?
To watch every single event?
Just so you can just see what's going on.
So there's the all event that lists for everything.
I'm sorry?
There's an event called all that lists for everything that comes in.
Oh, alright.
Yeah.
Just follow that.
Yeah, pretty much. If you want to visualize it, there's also some libraries that visualize DOM events. I forgot exactly what's off the top of my head, so
Check it out.
yeah.
So you're saying there's an all event, and that'll fire every time any event gets triggered.
Yep.
And then couldn't you look at what the event is? Like, isn't there some sort of
Yeah. So it
so
basically
you could maybe you could log it out like right now, all the events that are going on, like
all the
be
events.
kind of interesting.
Not Firewall.
There you
Okay,
go.
so basically, right now I'm listening for every event, and I'm just saying hi, but there's more that I could do.
I think Lynn will be setting up shop like on one of these desks after, and then we should go to more detailed questions, especially about the physics part.
I mean, isn't there like each event has like a
Yeah, so that's the event name.
yeah.
So all these events are just namespaces for events, and spawn is when servers respond, animate is happening all the time.
Are those circles just div elements with rounding, or are they?
Yeah, there's divs. Everything is just a
no
div.
canvas or no SVG? This is all done.
Yeah, it's all done.
Do you use cameras?
I've used it, but not.
CSS3 circle?
Oh, these are not.
Because
Well,
this kind of picture can generate by just CS3 HTML5.
Yeah.
Don't need JavaScript.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've used Canvas before too, but just for the purpose of this demo, I use Backbone for all the animations.
So when you have tons of events, how do you document them? What kind of good best practices do you use for naming them and sort of like namespacing? Once it gets more complicated than that.
Well, there's no. In terms of namespaces, you can just come up with whatever you want.
Yeah, so I know that's the great thing and also the hard thing, because then you have one guy using this and this.
Oh.
Is there a standard that you follow? I think that's the question.
Not really. I just kind of go by what the code is doing.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've seen is, there's usually some sort of, property on the global app object, and that's like the event dispatcher or whatever you want to call it. And one way to go might be to have multiple ones of those, I suppose, that kind of handle different.
Yeah, that's one
categories.
thing
So I mean, okay, then so for example, what I'm doing is just asking everyone to just document them in comments at the top of a JavaScript object, which events it triggers and listens to. But right,
Yeah, I mean, you don't.
that's if one event gets forgotten, like if you start going through the code and find everything again. I don't know. Maybe it's just that's where everyone does it, or have you guys figured out a better system of how to, I guess, register events or just list and document them?
Not that I know of. But you don't have to use one dispatcher object if that makes a difference. You can just have a bunch. You don't have to be global. It can be anything. You can even use models, whatever, anything, even backbone global.
So what benefit to use the Backbone.js?
What's the benefit of using
The
it
benefit, yeah.
in general?
Yeah, general.
Oh,
What's
just
the
gives you-
benefit why you use Backbone instead of CS3?
You mean for the animation?
Yeah,
Oh, there's no benefit for it in terms of the animation.
just for presentation.
Yeah, just for the demo.
Didn't show what's the benefit, why you have use the Backbone better than something else.
Better than something else.
Because
Wow.
I saw some internet, they said probably that Backbone will be deadlock.
Backbone
Using
will
search
be dead.
internet, yeah, some comment.
Wow.
Yeah, this is now you're more modern advanced technology, especially CSS3 and HTML5, you know.
Well, they serve
No
different
JavaScript
purposes.
involved for animation, for transition, scaling, rotating, you know.
Yeah, well, in,
Yeah.
in this particular case, this kind of
But
is
this
a
one, okay,
contrived
there's so
example.
many JavaScript there.
Yeah, I mean,
Making me feel dizzy.
yeah, in terms of animations, you don't have to use backbone. There's no real benefit to that.
Because I can use CSS3,
Yeah, I mean, I
just
know.
use basic
All right, let's go through the rest of the presentations, and maybe we'll get a better idea.
Yeah.
From a few more.
To show back
Backbone.
all the way around.
Yeah.
So what the purpose? Show backbone. If it's good, then we will take it. You know, we will learn. If no benefit,
Studio clients.
backbone is backend.
All right.
Clients.
Thanks, Lynn.